Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins in 1989 inside the Domas family mansion with two young brothers fleeing from their new uncle. The eldest Daniel hides his brother Alex in a closet before Uncle Charles catches up and begs the child for help as he's being hunted by the family. Instead, Dan alerts everyone to their location, and while his new bride Helene tries to prevent it, the rest of the family fill Charles full of arrows and drag him away to the games room. 30 years later, the youngest brother Alex is getting married to Grace, who's more eager to join his family than he is to continue being a part of it. He's grown up hating all of them except for his brother Daniel, who still looks out for him and tells Grace to get out now while she can, but she assumes he's just joking. Alex gives her a more serious final chance to leave and elope, but she wants to be a part of his family and what they cryptically call their gaming dominion. The couple have a photo shoot before the ceremony along with Daniel's wife Charity, who openly admits to only being with Daniel for his family's enormous wealth. Their father Tony disapproves of his favorite son's choice of a bride, but not as much as Helene, who since the murder of her husband has become the matriarch of the family. Finally, Alex and Daniel's mother Becky tells Grace that only her son's opinion matters in their relationship before everyone gathers for the ceremony. The couple are swiftly married, and that night while trying to get intimate they get interrupted by Helene, who reminds Alex about the game. He explains briefly to Grace that their family's tradition is to play a game at midnight with every new addition, then leaves to get ready. When Grace comes down, she gets welcomed in the games room by new additions Alex's cokehead sister Emilie and her stuck-up husband Fitch Bradley. Their two sons Georgie and Gabe run around the halls wearing the ritual masks and repeatedly shouting "kill" as everyone gathers to begin the game. Tony explains that the tradition was started by his great-grandfather, who made a deal with a demon named Mr. Levesque to make the family wealthy. As long as they play whatever games randomly distributed by the demon's box, the family lives, but if they fail to accomplish the task set out for them, they risk all dying. Charity says she got chess while Fitch got a game called Old Maid, but Grace draws hide and seek, causing the room to fall silent as it's the worst one to pull and the one that killed Charles in the beginning. Tony instructs Grace that she's to stay hidden until dawn to win, so she goes along with it and hides in the dumbwaiter while the family have no intention of letting her survive. They all arm themselves with guns except for Helene, who uses an axe, and Fitch a crossbow that he has no idea how to operate and needs to watch tutorials to help him. Alex chooses not to participate in the game, but as the family members begin hunting Grace, he doesn't want to just stand by and leaves to warn her. She eventually gets bored and leaves the dumbwaiter to go wandering around the house when Alex finds her and drags Grace behind a bed, warning her to be silent. The maid comes walking in searching for the children when suddenly her face is blown off by the cokehead Emilie, who thought she was shooting at Grace. Grace watches mortified as the rest enter and discuss the screw-up before dragging the body away and leaving Emilie to have another bump. Alex makes Grace trade her heels for tennis shoes and explains that the Domas family hide-and-seek means to kill the new girl before sunrise. He admits that he didn't tell her because he feared that she would leave him, and then sends her off while he returns to the family to pretend like he's loyal. Grace tears off the bottom of her dress to move around better, but as she makes her way back inside the house, she's immediately spotted by the family moving the maid's body. Emilie fires off another wild shot, nearly killing the others, while Grace attempts to escape but finds all of the windows and doors are locked. She gets caught by Daniel, but he doesn't want to be the one responsible for getting her killed like he did Charles, so he gives Grace a head start before alerting everyone else. They all gather to come up with a new plan to find Grace when Emilie realizes that she lost her gun, so Fitch gives her the crossbow to hold. She accidentally kills another maid, who Helene viciously puts out of her misery by beheading her, and tells her brother to turn on the security cameras. Tony doesn't want to break tradition and had the butler Stevens turn them all off to hunt like his grandfather would back in the day. Meanwhile, Grace returns to the games room to take a gun and some ammo before checking out what she's become in the mirror. She tries to sneak out through the kitchen when the butler enters to make dinner, so she hides behind the counter and loads up a round. Alex has gone to the control room to unlock the doors for Grace to escape, but when the butler refuses to move, she pulls the trigger and learns that the ammunition is for display purposes only. She smashes a teapot over his head, and as he wildly waves a knife around, Grace retreats back into the house only to find a maid hiding in the dumbwaiter. She attempts to call out to the family to alert them to Grace's location, but accidentally activates the lift and crushes herself with karma. Tony and Daniel break into the security room as Alex destroys the cameras and then strangles his father before getting talked down by his brother. It gives Tony a chance to knock his son unconscious, and the pair drag him back to his room and handcuff him to the bed to prevent him from helping Grace any further. Tony's confused at how a skinny little girl can be picking them off, while Helene reminds him that Alex will accept his place in the family just like she eventually did after they killed Charles. She says that Alex is the only one who's ever seen Mr. Levesque and is the future leader of the family, while Grace overhears all of this from the rooftop outside. She makes it to the ground and thinks about returning for Alex, but decides he's a lost cause and continues to the family stables. Georgie enters acting like he's going to help, but he pulls out his mother's gun to shoot a hole through Grace's hand, so she punches the little turd in the face, knocking him out. Startled by a goat, she then falls backwards into a pit where the corpses of family members and sacrificial goats have been disposed in for decades. She climbs back out, but as she reaches the top, the ladder collapses, causing her to catch herself with a nail straight through the hole in her hand. She endures and pulls herself out before using the sleeve of her wedding dress as a bandage to wrap the hole in her hand. Charity's having a smoke when she notices Grace legging it across the field, but she's a terrible shot and returns to the family to report her failure. Daniel doesn't believe in Mr. LaBelle, so Tony finally reveals that multiple deaths in the family were by the demon's doing and they just covered it up with stories of house fires. He makes Daniel and Emilie dispose of the maids' bodies in the goat pit, where they find Georgie regaining consciousness after his knuckle sandwich. Meanwhile, Grace manages to escape through the front gate and tries to flag down a car, but the rich douchebags just drive straight past her. She's soon found hiding in the woods by Stevens, who chases her through a field in his car before running her down on foot. Grace struggles to fight him off and manages to strangle him with another piece of her ever-handy dress before stealing his car to escape. It doesn't get far before the customer service agent shuts down the car the moment it's reported stolen by Stevens. He catches up and shoots Grace with a tranquilizer before driving her back to the family while FaceTiming them to let them know that he's captured her. He doesn't hear Grace wake up over his celebratory music, nor the family try to warn him that she's about to kick him in the face from behind. It causes the car to flip and the family witness the butler die in the crash, but Grace manages to pull herself out of the wreckage in one piece. She's found by Daniel, who says that he isn't the good guy that she thinks he is, and knocks her out to be taken back to the mansion. Alex has been trying to escape his cuffs when Becky enters to talk to her son about his loyalty to the family. Like her husband, she seems convinced that in the end Alex will choose them over Grace, but he says that he would kill them all before letting that happen. Meanwhile, Grace is tied to an altar in the games room where the family stand around in their cultist robes preparing to sacrifice her to Mr. LaBelle. They pass around a chalice and all drink from it, but just before Tony plunges a knife into Grace, they all begin spitting up blood. Good guy Daniel poisoned them just enough to help Grace escape, but they begin to recover quickly and the pair are found by Charity. Not wanting to lose her posh lifestyle, she shoots her own husband in the throat, so Grace takes the gun, but with it now empty, she just pistol whips the crappy wife. She thanks Daniel, whose last words are telling her to run, but before she can get out, Grace comes across Tony in a weakened state. When he approaches, she wallops him over the head with an oil lantern and tosses it to the side, causing the curtains to catch fire before spreading to the rest of the house. Becky narrowly misses Grace with an arrow before charging at her and trying to strangle her daughter-in-law, but she knocks her off and uses the demon's box to bludgeon her to death. Alex finally breaks free from his cuffs, only to witness his brother dying in his arms before walking in on his mother's head being caved in by his wife. When he realizes that Grace is never going to stay with him after this, he inevitably betrays her and gives her up to his family for sacrifice. Everyone gathers around the table to continue with the ritual by holding Grace down themselves, since they don't have any time to tie her up. Even the children are brought in to watch, and just like the family hoped, Alex leads them in plunging the dagger into Grace. She twists at the last second and takes it in the shoulder, then slips free and pulls it out to defend herself until sunrise. Helene spots the rays of sunlight coming in and begs Mr. LaBelle's chair for forgiveness for failing to kill Grace before dawn. The family all prepare for their impending death, but nothing happens right away, so Helene grabs her axe and continues wanting to kill Grace anyway. She suddenly explodes into a bloody mess covering the whole room, who now have their beliefs confirmed that the deal wasn't just superstition. One by one they all begin to explode, including Emilie's satanic children and Tony, who shouts about how he followed all of the rules. The last Domas remaining begs his wife to forgive him, but Grace asks for a divorce by throwing her ring at him, causing Alex to explode. Fire from the curtain spreads around the house, and for a brief moment Grace sees Mr. LaBelle give a nod of approval for surviving the game. Covered in blood, Grace exits the burning mansion and sits on the steps with a well-earned cigarette as police and paramedics arrive. An officer off-screen questions her about what happened, to which Grace simply replies with in-laws. And the movie ends.